Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. We are just a day away from the Joy News National Dialogue on defending media freedom ahead of the December post. Tonight, the Bank of Ghana is debunking claims of some $20 million cash transfer through the back door, claiming it's a part of a long-standing arrangement between Ghana and Liberia. We have details of statements from the central banks of Liberia and Ghana, which insist the publication first put out by the North-Tongue MP is laced with mischief. Also tonight, Ministry of Finance in a desperate plea for the Finance Committee of Parliament to approve a 500 million cedi drawdown from Ghana's contingency fund to support government effort to mitigate a looming food crisis and national security threat.
That's about 2.5 billion Ghana cedis. This is largely coming from the contingency fund, which our constitution established. And so we intend to trigger the processes for accessing the contingency fund.
We'll get to hear from the Peasant Farmers Association, who are already accusing government of no consultation in the move to marshal support for the farmers.
There's support for the farmers, the input support and then the cash support. I think that we will need to have a very transparent system to ensure that the system or the approach is not compromised.
And also tonight's tempers flare in Parliament as Chairman of Assurances Committee clashed with Minister for Works and Housing over efforts to resettle victims of the Akosombo Dam spillage.
After I expose the government. Chairman. Can I speak? Can I speak?
Of course you can speak. But if
I
you ask
am
question,
the chairman of this committee,
yes.
And I will regulate this meeting.
We have details as Oppong Nkrumah accused Ablakwa of using the committee as a bully pulpit to make unfounded accusations against ministers and the government.
You intend to use your committee as a bully pulpit to invite ministers and make these accusations and not give them an opportunity to answer.
You will be well advised. I will not take that. To suggest that I am using this position as a bully pulpit. You have to retract that.
In business, total value of loans granted by banks and savings and loans for second quarter with support from the collateral registry increased significantly to reach almost 11 billion Ghana cedis.
And the sports group petitions the special prosecutor to investigate the over $240 million spent on the African Games by the Ministry of Youth and Sports.
And it's a few months to the end of President Akufo-Addo's tenure, and the National Cathedral site is fallow, while the promise he made to God remains in limbo. Tonight, we'll get to hear from the leaders of the two main political parties on what they would do about it.
One should have an engagement with the churches and all the stakeholders for us to see how best to get the funding to complete the project.
I don't condone stealing in the name of God. And so first, let's investigate. And if people have unlawfully taken the monies of the people of Ghana, they must be made to refund.
And then later we'll get to hear why Archbishop Duncan Williams resigned from the board. That and more in tonight's edition of Newsnight. You want to join us with your thoughts, your comments via WhatsApp is 055-1111-997. We are live on X Spaces. We're on myjoyonline.com. Also on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. I am Emefa Apau.
My name is Evans. So details after this.
Thanks for staying with us here on Newsnight on Joy 99.7 FM. And Evans, tonight there's a development at least started by the chairman of Assurances Committee of Parliament, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, and also the North-Tongue MP. On his social media platform earlier, he posted he put up a post on some 20 million cash which arrived in Ghana via the Kotoka International Airport this afternoon. $20 million in cash, which arrived in Ghana via the Kotoka International Airport this afternoon. So portions of this particular statement he put out on social media says the cash has since been cleared by officials of the Bank of Ghana, and that the Bank of Ghana must offer explanations on why supporting documents are not consistent with the content of its August 21, 2024 letter to custom and airport officials seeking to clear the uncirculated banknotes. Now, it continues to say that even though the Bank of Ghana claims the money was ordered by the Central Bank of Liberia, and that the cash will be re-exported to Monrovia whenever there is an available flight, other intercepted documents, including an airway bill, indicate emphatically that the consignee is the Bank of Ghana and not the Central Bank of Liberia. And he goes on to say, my international partners and I will keep tracking this $20 million cash from London to confirm if indeed the fresh banknotes will be transferred to Liberia, when the transfer will be carried out, and if the full amount will be transferred. And as usual, he asks for God and country, and then posts the documents that he talks about, which is exactly.
In the last few minutes, though, the Bank of Ghana and the Central Bank of Liberia both issued separate statements on this particular matter, clarifying a few things. One, for the Bank of Ghana, they say that for the abundance of doubt, this is something that happens. It's a regular transaction, and that it's a long-standing currency transfer arrangement with the Central Bank of Liberia, and this has been happening since 2004, apparently, the Bank of Ghana is telling us, and that per this particular arrangement, the Bank of Ghana receives imported currency on behalf of the Central Bank of Liberia for re-export to Monrovia. Now, the Bank of Ghana also clarifies that the uncirculated banknotes mentioned in Okudzeto Ablakwa's post are part of this long-standing arrangement. They clarify again that when all logistical arrangements, including scheduled flights, are finalized, these will be re-exported to the Central Bank of Liberia. Now, they also raise issues about the administrative processes and security protocols, and they call out some Okudzeto Ablakwa on this, and they claim that because all relevant stakeholders are officially informed of the entry and exit of the consignments related to this particular arrangement, that unless there is mischief intended, there was no reason for this matter to have become an issue for public discussion. This is the Bank of Ghana now raising issues with the way the Member of Parliament had raised the matter on social media. Now, they also raise the sensitivity of this particular matter, and that it has security implications. And it's the reason why they describe the posts as, quote, unfortunate that, quote, a lawmaker will circulate such sensitive procedural and administrative clearance letter involving another sovereign nation in a bid to misinform and disinform the public and attach a narrative that seeks to suggest some wrongdoing on the part of the Bank of Ghana. Now, the Bank of Ghana also clarifies that the arrangement between the Bank of Ghana and the Central Bank of Liberia signifies a mutual trust between the two countries and a testament to the strong bond of friendship between Accra and Monrovia, and that the central bank, our central bank, has one of the most sophisticated state-of-the-art currency management operations within the sub-region, and that's why the Central Bank of Liberia relies on us for this particular sort of transaction, and that they will continue to uphold the reputation as a reliable and trustworthy institution in all its international and domestic arrangements in currency management. And then there's a separate statement also from the
Central Bank of Liberia as well.
What is it that you're
it's
saying?
Also dated
Are they supporting
today.
this?
Okay, so I would want to read verbatim what the Central Bank of Liberia is also saying. They said the Central Bank of Liberia clarifies media report that a $20 million cash importation consigned to the Bank of Ghana destined for Liberia is a legitimate transaction. They say the importation of United States dollars is part of the bank's normal function, which is required to meet the needs of the economy, including the USD withdrawal demands and needs of the government of Liberia and the commercial banks, or CBL and the Bank of Ghana have long-standing cash custody agreement executed for the BOG to provide overnight custody for CBL, imported cash, when shipped from London by Travelex Currency, which is an international currency shipment company. It goes on to say these cash shipments by flight are cleared through both the Ghana and Liberia customs, thus validating their legitimate sources. So the CBO once again emphasizes its commitment to transparency and accountability and encourages the media to always reach out to the bank to verify any information about the bank's operation before publication. But there are questions also that were raised by the North Tongue MP about the consignee being the Bank of Ghana and not the Central Bank of Liberia, amongst others. But these two statements have been issued after that particular post from the North Tongue MP. And at the last check, he was chairing the Assurances Committee in Parliament, and we're working the lines to see if we can bring in the North Tongue MP, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, on these two statements, separate statements issued by the Bank of Ghana, clarifying that post that he put on social media, plus that of what we're seeing from the Central Bank of Liberia.
And that's something that we're following very closely. We get to some clarity at the business desk. You're working your sources at the Central Bank to get a bit more on this also. Talking about Samuel Ablakwa, by the way, he has been today chairing the Assurances Committee work, and tempers have been flaring today on that committee, sitting when chairman of the committee, Mr. Ablakwa, clashed with the Minister for Works and Housing, Oppong Nkrumah. Mr. Ablakwa was questioning the minister on what he said was a poor attitude the government has shown towards dealing with suffering of persons displaced by the spillage of the Akosombo Dam. But Oppong Nkrumah fought back, insisting that was not the case, leaving the two speaking at each other and calling each other out.
Matter that we reduce to political football, deflection, obfuscation, red herrings, as you are trying to do today. It's been a year. People are living in distress. People are devastated. Fellow citizens, your contractors, after their late arrival, are even behind schedule. You are now looking at some 14-day window to go to the site. Clearly, we are not impressed. When will the first set of houses be ready? And when can we see a change in attitude? When can this committee see your ministry, your government, prioritizing the plight of victims of the VRA spillage?
Chairman, I think we should also move away from this, may I say, posture, where we want to create the impression that some persons care and some persons don't care. You introduced the word sincerity into this conversation.
Yes.
If we are being sincere, you have been one of the persons who keeps whipping up this impression that somebody doesn't care. You will recall that when the military on ground was asked to move from one location to another as part of the exercise, you came out saying that the military had been asked to withdraw from the place.
I'm glad that you have introduced that.
Chairman, that was not sincere.
I am glad that you have introduced that matter.
Yes.
What your government did, what the commander-in-chief asked them to do, was rather the insincerity. They were moving out. The commander told me, I was there, the
Chairman,
TV, and your former
Chairman,
colleagues.
That is not correct.
We will not have a banter here.
That is not correct.
But for the record, and this is my committee. You don't come here and dictate. I'm the chair of this committee.
You have asked me a question and I'm responding.
And
you
on the matter,
the word insincerity.
And on the matter,
I'm respectfully submitting to you that when you announced to the whole republic that the military had been asked to withdraw from the Volta region, Chairman, that wasn't sincere, because the military had not been asked to withdraw from the entire Volta region. They had been asked to move from one place to the other. And that wasn't sincere.
I am putting it to you.
And
I
think
that was an afterthought. After I
exposed
the government.
Chairman,
can I speak?
Can I speak? Of course you can speak. But if
I
you ask
am
question,
the chairman of this committee, and I will regulate this meeting.
You have the right to. But if you put out a word that
on the matter,
I will respond, Chairman.
on the matter of sincerity, I know what you are doing. You are trying to deflect. We will come back to housing. On the matter of the soldiers were moving out. They had packed and were leaving. I was with the TV3 crew. Talk to TV3. They broke the news. They spoke to the commanders. It was an afterthought. After there was an uproar, then the military PR put out a statement that they were moving to another location.
Can I respond?
So,
can I respond?
As a matter of fact,
can I respond?
They were moving out. The military movement is not the subject of this discussion.
You have introduced the term insincerity.
It is your government
Chairman,
that has been insincere.
Can I respond, Chairman?
Their response was insincere.
Can I respond, Chairman?
The soldiers were moving out. I was on the tour with TV3. They saw them moving out. They had packed bag and baggage and were moving out. The commanders on the floor that day told us that they were moving out. And I condemned that. And they did a U-turn and came back to that same location. If they were moving to another place, why didn't they go to wherever you say they were going to? They came back.
Can I respond?
You will respond when it is time for you to respond.
Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante joins us now. So, Kweku, did he respond?
Well, he did. Oppong Nkrumah sought to make his point and, in fact, accused the chairman of using the platform of the Assurance Committee as a bully pulpit at which he accuses government of various inactions and actions and not giving them the right opportunity to respond.
We have to have a right to respond to those accusations that you have made. You earlier accused us of insincerity. And I suggested to you that, with great respect, without a challenge to the fact that you are chairman of this committee and that this is a committee of parliament, I mentioned to you earlier that there's work that is ongoing. Within 14 days, the regional minister and myself will be back on the ground. This will not be the first time. We'll be back on the ground to engage with the contractors and make a determination of why they are behind schedule and when they will complete. And when that is done, I'll be able to ferry to this committee updated timelines of when they will be complete. But Chairman, I'm saying to you that if you introduce the concept of insincerity, of playing partisan football, of deflecting and introducing red herrings, it is respectfully within my right to also draw your attention to instances where I am of the view you have done same. But I don't think that that is what we are here to do for the benefit of the Ghanaian people. For the people in these areas, the number one interest that they have is that we complete these projects on time for people to benefit. But if you choose, Chairman, respectfully, to accuse me before the whole country of playing partisan football, not being sincere, of deflecting and of introducing red herrings, then I have a right in my own defense to draw your attention to instances where I believe you have done same. I don't think that's what we are here to do. Specific on this matter, within 14 days, myself and the regional minister will be on ground once again. We will engage with the contractors. We will have clearer timelines, which I will share with you. If we want to go into the questions of parliamentary football and deflection, I don't think that you intend to use your committee as a bully pulpit to invite ministers and make these accusations and not give them an opportunity to answer.
You will be well advised. I will not take that. To suggest that I am using this position as a bully pulpit, you have to retract that, because that is not what I'm doing here.
So, Chairman,
I am well within my standing orders. You have to retract that.
Chairman,
you must retract and apologize for that statement.
But it is okay. I will not take that. It is okay for the chairman of the committee and the committee to accuse the minister of being insincere, of deflecting, without more, and I do not have the right to answer or to say that I share a different view.
So you think that it is okay that for a whole year, fellow citizens are living in a tent?
We can have a conversation
You think that it is fine?
Chairman,
you think that is the best as leaders? We are all leaders.
That's a conversation we can have.
You think that is the best we can do for our people?
No, Chairman, that's not it. That's a conversation we can have, and I think we've legitimately gone through that. But if you choose to accuse me of insincerity, of introducing red herrings, of deflecting, that is not about the people. That is you accusing me.
Of course, because we are
but
not...
if you are accusing me, I must have a right to respond.
You are introducing matters that are not before us, matters that you have your facts totally wrong.
Which matters are these?
The movement of the soldiers, you have... That was not before us. You
facts.
introduced that.
I have fact. No,
are we discussing soldiers here?
You introduced
Are we discussing soldiers?
Kweku, how was this resolved?
Well, at that point, the tempers were fled and the MPs were literally shouting at each other. It was suggested that they take a 5-minute break, and after that 5-minute break, the MPs came back together with the minister, had gone into one of the small rooms around the committee building, calmed tensions, and then came on to continue with the sitting. And that matter did not come up again until the roads minister himself took his turn, which just ended about 5 minutes ago.
And Oppong Nkrumah did not retract and apologize, did he?
No, he did not.
We can speak now to the chairman of the Assurances Committee, Samuel Ablakwa.
This matter, and then also on our very first story that we've been talking about. Mr. Ablakwa, we are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. Maybe before we get into the BOG's responses to this, I'm curious about what transpired today at the Assurances Committee. Is there a particular action that will be taken going forward? How exactly are we hoping to resolve this particular situation between yourself and the Works and Housing Ministry?
Well, good evening. It's nothing personal. We have to do our work, and the Assurances Committee, under Standing Order 225, is to follow up on assurances made on the floor. We're talking about a national disaster of monumental proportion. As I put to the minister, 1,360 people are living in tents as we speak. And this government has not constructed a single one-room building to take care of fellow citizens who are taxpayers, who have equal rights, who are bona fides. And the minister thought that he could just obfuscate, dance around issues. I mean, you don't do that before the Assurances Committee. Our mandate is to pursue assurances made on the floor. You are very late. You have missed all your deadlines, all the assurances given. There is no sense of urgency on the part of government to resolve these matters and to bring relief to our fellow citizens. And that is what the committee was concerned about. So our report to plenary is going to be very clear. Our committee is not impressed with government's response and with the posture of the Minister for Works and Housing. And we're going to have a debate on the floor about this matter. Okay. And our committee will ask for a new approach, a new attitude, a new response from government.
But to the extent that, Mr. Ablakwa, we saw what happened when the health minister also appeared before the committee. Also, he had some similar concerns. To the extent that some of these issues that the Assurances Committee is having to deal with are issues that you personally championed. And, of course, you may have some emotional attachments to these issues. No?
There's absolutely nothing in our standing orders that prevent a member of parliament who's championed issues, who has attachments. Actually, it puts you even in a much better place. And that is why this Assurances Committee makes sure that MPs who have raised matters, who have filed questions, and ministers have to appear before the Assurances Committee, we invite those MPs so that we can verify, we can validate, we can be sure that what the ministers are telling us, because it's the MPs who are on the ground, they know their constituencies. So it helps for MPs who know about the situation. I mean, if we didn't have me chairing this committee or MPs from affected constituencies, so far as this disaster, the spillage from the Akosombo Dam is concerned, I mean, the minister will really have gotten away, and the people will still be languishing.
But the difference, some would say, is the fact that you are the chairman of this particular committee, more so appearing to be the judge in your own cause.
The question that we should be asking, is it fair? In less than 2 weeks will be the first anniversary of this disaster. We, MP and partners, corporate Ghana, NGOs, individuals, were able to build houses in 7 weeks. 7 weeks. We don't collect taxes. We don't have national resources. We did that in 7 weeks. The First Sky Group, the MP and partners. How can a whole government, a year, people are living in tents, and ministers think that this is a matter we should take lightly, and we should, I mean, the whole posture, totally wrong. I mean, already your response is so late, your contractors arrive, they have missed deadlines, and then you're telling us within the next 14 days you hope to, and he was being evasive. They didn't want to speak to the lack of urgency, the poor response. I mean, we are not going to take that at this committee. We will not accept that.
Away from that, also, at least, this is an issue that we'll still be following because the Assurances Committee will be sitting further on this. But about your earlier post this afternoon on social media about this $20 million in cash in terms of the transfer through Kotoka International Airport, you had cause to raise concerns about the BOG and some concerns about consignee, amongst others. We are getting statements tonight from the Bank of Ghana as well as the Central Bank of Liberia. Both statements seeks to clarify that there's a long-standing cash custody agreement where the BOG provides overnight custody for CBL when shipped from London by Travelex Currency. They also go on to mention, at least from the BOG's part, that relevant stakeholders are officially informed about this. You must be a relevant stakeholder. Are you not aware about this particular arrangement? They detect mischief actually in the publication.
So, to answer your question directly, I'm not one of the stakeholders that these letters were copied to. And you can check with Parliament and with MPs. We have not been copied these letters. Now, it is important to state that the concerns raised had to do with the way and manner this particular transaction was carried out. insiders were concerned about the inconsistency with the supporting documents. And if you pay regard to the way bill that I published from my unimpeachable sources, you see the discrepancy. The way bill and other supporting documents did not align with the August 21, 2024 letter from the BOG. And that is why I raised questions. I indicated that I was tracking. Note that I didn't pass any conclusive judgment. I said that I was tracking, I was monitoring. Indeed, the figure that I put out, initially there were attempts to question that figure. I saw the President's Council write on social media that how do I know about the amount. Now the Central Bank of Liberia has confirmed that indeed my figure was accurate. The $20 million I put out is accurate. And now that we have these clarifications, because I did indicate that we are monitoring, we are going to make sure that there are no diversions. And it's part of our work as members of parliament to carry out oversight, to let all institutions know that we are on top of our job, we are watching, we are keenly monitoring, and we are carrying out oversight.
Well, a few questions, key questions, Mr. Ablakwa. You are a member of Parliament, long-standing also a committee member of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. If you were actually seeking clarity on this when you got this information, considering that Liberia and other countries involved, was social media the way to go to be able to get to that clarity you're looking for?
Definitely. Social media is a very key medium. Just like traditional media, you want everybody who is part of this to know that there is a monitoring process and that members of parliament are carrying out their oversight and they are watching. It's exactly the objective you want to achieve by using social media. And that is why I did what I did. And I always put out the relevant documentation. So nobody can say that this was just a figment of my imagination or I was concocting. I mean, here we are. We have a confirmation of the figure. We have certain clarifications that are coming up, and it's all good. It's all well and good. And we'll continue to monitor, we'll continue to carry out our oversight.
It's not about the issue of concocting per se is the concern. The issue about putting out flight details, considering that it involves another country, Liberia, also Ghana, and the fact that it raises national security concerns is the concern.
These flight details were not put out by me. They put out those details in their documents. In my write-up, I didn't put out any flight details. And there have been no flight details on the re-exportation as and when that re-exportation will be carried out. We are carrying out our mandate. It's pure oversight, and I do not see the national security breach in this matter.
But this document you talk about, Mr. Ablakwa, was not put out by the BOG in the public domain. You actually did.
And so? So how does that constitute a breach of national security?
I mean, considering that there's $20 million involved here that needs to be transferred to another country, there are serious security concerns in the transfer of that particular amount. The BOG in this statement talks about the sensitivity of this, considering that you have another country's currency in Ghana's custody.
So we are suggesting that we don't have money in Ghana. The BOG doesn't keep money. I really don't get all of this red herring. And how does that compromise? Are we saying that we should not pursue transparency? We should not hold institutions accountable, particularly when we have serious concerns, when documentations are not aligning, when current documentations differ from previous.
But a social media the tool to use to hold the BOG accountable, considering the sensitive nature of the matter we're talking about.
I do not. These are matters of opinion. I do not share those opinions, and I do not see any breach in national security. I don't see. I mean, how has this publication jeopardized? Have the funds been lost? I mean, I really don't get these bizarre claims of national security. Look, everybody will have to be accountable, and as public officials, we are not above scrutiny. We are not above transparent mechanisms to ensure that we are accountable when there are serious matters of concern.
We get the accountability part you talk about, but considering the fact that the arrangement or the agreement between the two countries is an overnight custody and they will have to ship the money back maybe tomorrow, and we've put our flight details and all the details about it, you see it doesn't jeopardize it at all. In hindsight, do you think that this is the way you should have gone?
It appears to me you have not read the publication, the documents. Those flight details out there are flight details of a flight that has already arrived. Nobody has put out flight details of an outstanding flight, of a re-exportation that will or may occur. Nobody has done that. So I don't see the red herring here. Look, at the end of the day, in an era where we are having increased cases of money laundering, increased cases of terrorist financing, talk to the National Security Minister. These are matters that have been presented to us in Parliament. We all must be on the alert. We all must be concerned. And we are carrying out our mandate, our constitutional mandate of oversight. That is exactly what we are doing. We haven't put out any flight details of a future flight or an imminent flight. Nothing has been done. And indeed, I made sure that these matters had been concluded, they had cleared the funds, and they were not in transit when I raised the legitimate questions which I raised.
So the explanation that both central banks have given so far to the concerns that you raised, the questions that you raised, does it suffice?
It will appear satisfactory at this point, but we will keep monitoring. We have systems in place to.
Well, we'll leave it here, but you disagree that any harm has been caused by your publication?
We may have lost him there, but that there is Samuel Kujita Ablakwa. I want to hear your thoughts on this 205511119997, and George Rafi is here with business. And George, this is something that the Bank of Ghana was quick to jump on and get some clarity out there immediately.
And I am worried about, we are not talking about the outbound flight, but even for people knowing that monies are brought in on a commercial flight, you know the implications. Flights are hijacked all over the world. People seeking money. Now I know that beneath that aircraft, monies could be there being brought into the country.
So if you're on a flight, imagine you're on a flight now, you're like, oh my goodness, there was $20
and there
million
are underground staff that work on all these
arrived
things,
in Ghana and shot while a government from power sitting on the flight, probably
bag,
cooling off,
and
not knowing I had $20 million in the flight somewhere. I like movies.
The
money
movies make real situations.
Money heist movies. This is the kind of thing that the guys.
Watch too many movies.
You don't know somebody will even do
to know about.
To take $1,000 from your luggage or even $500 from your luggage. And you know that an aircraft always brings in this amount of money for another country with a flight number and everything.
Well, George, what else do you have the headlines?
Well, coming up, total value of loans granted by banks and savings and loans for second quarter with support from the collateral registry increased significantly to reach almost 11 billion Ghana cedis. And energy analyst Dr. Yusuf Suleiman describes strong growth of oil marketing firm Star as good for the industry, insisting it demonstrates that price could be a major factor. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. You welcome to Business on Newsnight. Now, total value of loans granted by banks and savings and loans for the second quarter of this year with support from the collateral registry increased significantly to hit almost 11 billion Ghana cedis. This was captured in the collateral registry report issued by the Bank of Ghana. There is more in this report.
Data from the Bank of Ghana showed loans granted by these financial institutions based on assets registered with collateral registry went up by more than 80%. Bank of Ghana put the amount at almost 11 billion Ghana cedis for the second quarter of this year, compared to 5.9 billion cedis in the same period last year. Out of this amount, 9.1 billion came from the commercial banks, compared to 4.9 billion in 2023. On the other hand, special deposit institutions like savings and loans also gave out 1.7 billion cedis, compared to 971 million granted last year. Another interesting development that emerged from this report is that a lot more took loan from the banks using their assets registered with the collateral registry, and they actually paid back on time. Also, the total number of assets registered with the collateral registry went up by more than 50% to 80,000. Private enterprises constituted the largest recipients of secured loans with a percentage share of almost 60%. It was followed by individuals with 15% share.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, Bank of Ghana has maintained that it is committed to clamp down on activities of digital payment fraud. Speaking at MTN's Mobile Money at 15 Fintech Stakeholders Forum, Director of Fintech Innovation of the Bank of Ghana, Kwame Oppong, says they will continue to cooperate with fintechs and other payment platforms to block fraud from being done by any sector in the economy.
There is, in fact, an avenue for such people to be barred on the network. In fact, there's a shared fraud platform that they already use, and they are barring phone number hardware that is actually used to facilitate fraud across the ecosystem, by the way. And this is why in my presentation I highlighted the need for collaboration. It is not enough to do this in a siloed basis.
Kwame Oppong is head of fintech at the Bank of Ghana. Let's still stay in that sector because the central bank has noted that nomination of next of kin is a critical requirement for account opening in the country. This is containing an update on requirement for account opening according to the regulator. There is more in this report.
The announcement by the Bank of Ghana is part of review of the Know Your Customer policy when it comes to account opening in the country. This is part of the Bank of Ghana's requirement that seeks more information for persons opening an account with a financial institution or when one is carrying out some financial transaction. The Bank of Ghana in the notice maintained for the purpose of account opening, this refers to an account holder's closest living relative who can be contacted in an event the account holder is not reachable. The central bank in the statement maintained that the account holder will be required to provide the name, address, and telephone number of the person nominated by next of kin. It also went ahead to add that this next of kin should be capable of providing relevant information about the depositor when the need arises, adding that this next of kin should be of legal age. The Bank of Ghana was, however, quick to add that the next of kin here in relation to account opening does not inherit or gain access to the account or funds of the account of the deceased. The Bank of Ghana went ahead to clarify that this next of kin here can have access to the account only if that person has been named in the deceased customers as well as beneficiary of the account, and a court of competent jurisdiction have also granted the letters to this next of kin.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, energy analyst Dr. Yusuf Suleiman has described the strong growth of indigenous oil marketing firm Star Oil as good for the industry. Latest industry data show the Star Oil has moved from among the players in the industry to be the number 2, ending June this year. Dr. Suleiman says that this shows that the price approach is working in the industry.
And that's going to be very interesting, especially if we have these 3 major ones. We have Shell, Total, and Goil. They've almost taken the market, and it got to a time we almost see similar figures coming up from these 3 fields. And the reason why they did it, why did Goil become the market leader now? Because they did that through price. Because and that's what a very interesting thing for the OMCs to look at. We have volumes and we have price. Sometimes you need to churn out more volumes and you can still make out the profit that you need. Just reduce the price. Once you are still within the profit margin, reduce the price a little bit, churn out more volumes, and you'll be in business. And I think that's what Star has done. And your report rightly mentioned that. Consumers are becoming price sensitive, and that's very clear. And I see that as positive thing for the industry.
energy analyst Dr. Yusuf Suleiman. And that's all for business on News Now. Quite heavy on the Bank of Ghana.
Don't go looking for any flights and
please,
bye-bye.
I beg you.
George, you are there with the latest from the world of business. Let's do sports now. Musbao, what do we have?
Well, MFL Civil Society Organization Forum for Accountable Governance has petitioned the Office of the Special Prosecutor to institute an extensive investigation into acts of alleged corruption surrounding the 13th African Games held in Accra. Now, the organization is, among other things, asking the Office of the Special Prosecutor to thoroughly examine the $245 million expenditure used in hosting and organizing the games held from March 4 to March 23. Here's the convener of the forum, Kwame Owusu-Danso.
Particularly because we suspect that there are some companies that are close to persons who are politically exposed, or the company that belongs to persons who are politically exposed. Also, we have noticed that there are some procurement breaches in the selection of the persons who were given, the jobs to organize first for the All African Games, and also in selecting the companies for the broadcasting of the event and the food and etc. So that is why we came today to invite the office to investigate into what went into the $245 billion that was used for the purpose of organizing the All African Games.
So before we're waiting for the special prosecutor to commence investigation into this very matter that has generated some public conversation surrounding it. Well, MFA, we'll keep tabs on this and bring you more update.
Okay, thank you very much, Musbao, for this. Well, let's take you to Parliament. And the Ministry of Finance has initiated moves to withdraw some 500 million cedis from Ghana's contingency fund to support government's effort to mitigate a potential food crisis. Well, we know that the Minister for Agric, Brian Champong, at a meter press engagement on Monday, confirmed the destruction of thousands of farmlands due to the dry spell experienced in part of northern Ghana, with an estimated 22.2 billion cedi revenue loss. Well, the situation, according to the minister, could lead to food crisis if not addressed immediately. Well, today we've seen that letter that's been written from the Finance Ministry to Parliament Finance Committee to approve or give approval for this to happen. Well, James Aveji has details of that statement, joins us in studio with what exactly the Finance Ministry is asking for. What's the case they are making?
So they said, quote, given the assessed impact of the impending food security crisis in 5 northern regions and the affecting over 900,000 farmers and the heightening the risk of extremism, they are urging the committee to urgently approve the 500 million Ghana cedis to undertake 3 key things: mop up stock from the farmers and urgent importation of grains, as well as cash transfers, as well as input support for the affected farmers. It is based on this they are urging the Finance Committee to in accordance with the Constitution as well as the Finance Act and the orders of Parliament to approve this urgently to undertake these activities.
And I want to bring in the Deputy Finance Minister who joins us on the line right now. And this letter has gone to the Finance Committee as we speak right now. We may have just lost him on the line there, still listening to News 90 on Joy 99.7 FM. Sibinama, do I still have you?
Yes, sir.
Great. You're talking about 500 million cedis that you are asking from the contingency fund, but from what we understand, the authorization you got from the president was for $500 million, some 8 billion cedis. Why are you getting the remainder of the money?
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. I beg you, I don't know whether it's allowed, but please, if my brother Samuel Kujeto is listening to me, you should go and read Vienna Convention.
I'm sorry, I don't have time on this. If you can address that question for me very briefly, as in where you're getting the rest of the money from.
As of now, we are taking 1 billion from Ministry of Agri's budget, 200 million from Ghana Cares, and they are taking 500 from the contingency. And then I think it will try to give us something to mitigate on what is happening. And also roads, Ministry of Roads, we are taking 500 million for now at least, whilst we plan the rest. This is where we are. And I think, the contingency fund, Article 1771, allows that. And even the Public Financial Management Act also, and then the Standing Order, Section 227, all allows that. But we are working very fast to make sure that we curtail the situation or mitigate its impact to avoid any national security issues and food insecurity.
And do you have an indication from the committee when they will consider this, and if you get approval, considering where we are and the minority already raising concerns about what you really plan to use the money for?
Evans, if I say yes, I'll be a liar. And since I was appointed as Deputy Finance Minister, I had been moved from the Finance Committee. That's what happens. But I know that the urgency of the whole case and then the commitment of both minority and majority caucus in Parliament when it comes to national issues, I'm sure they wouldn't let it get to where we will probably have to trigger anything that we are not ready to. So I think as early as possible, I'll call it speed and accuracy. We'll try to cooperate and help everyone to get out of this situation.
Thank you very much, Stephen Amwa.
And it's time for our climate focus series. I'll take you to the Anglo community. They are grappling with the devastating impact of the tidal waves.
52-year-old Kennedy Atipo is an inland fisherman and a community leader in Anglo Beach. Like him, many of the elders in this town have their basic education in the Anglo Beach Methodist Primary School.
When it is time of game, the athletics, we do all here.
This school has been raised down by rising sea tides. The over 500 students have been moved into makeshift structures put up by the community members.
This school in which we are now, it is in the middle of the town. There's other houses up front there. Those houses in the sea now.
Like many coastal towns, Anglo Beach in the western region suffers from rising sea levels. The last high tide happened 4 months ago and carried with it many homes and key community structures, including the school. Robert Ansa has been teaching at the school for over 13 years.
When I came here 2010 and I started teaching, the school is in order. Every structure is there. We even have this caging there. But when we came here, the place is open, uncompleted.
Grace Senanu, a fishmonger, has 2 young boys, both of whom used to attend the Anglo Beach Methodist Primary School. She is thankful that the destruction of the school happened at night, but cannot hide her grief.
When I heard that the school had been destroyed, I was very sad because the school is where our children get the education that will assure a better future for them.
Christian Havon grew up in Anglo Beach. He attended the Methodist Primary School and his child is there now. His voice echoes the plea of the entire community.
This was not how our community used to be. The town is completely broken. The sea has swallowed a large portion of our community. We need the sea defense to be constructed.
Approximately 25% of Ghana's population lives in coastal areas. Between 2005 and 2017, rising sea levels claimed almost 37% of the nation's land area. Anglo Beach has only one ask: support to complete and refurbish their new school as they wait for the government to build a sea defense wall for them.
That's Mauto Koku Abuse Report there for Climate Focus series. Climate Focus on Joy News is brought to you by Youth Bridge Foundation and Climate and Development Knowledge Network. Look out for the next in the series.
And tomorrow morning, we'll begin the final countdown to the Joy National Freedom Dialogue and Joy Media National Freedom Dialogue. That's a very important one that we're all looking for. Defend media freedom is our theme for tomorrow. You really do not want to miss that. But join the hashtag Defend Media Freedom GH, and the conversation is from 4 p.m. It's going to be across our networks on Joy News and Joy 99.7 FM on our social media platform. You are hosting, by the way.
Yes, I look forward to that tomorrow.
You've been a
can't
victim
miss it.
of abuse before.
I'll tell my story.
Your job. Myself, I was whipped with a hostel. So it's something that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, you can't miss it. And that's how we wrap up today's edition of Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM.
Are you really going to wrap up without
Strong
talking
and
to
sassy
me?
up next.
Hello.
Enimado, where have you been?
Hello.
What's up? What are we talking about tonight?
So we're talking about like when you want to get married, do looks matter?
Oh,
like when
looks matter?
Like,
the person you're going to marry.
Yes, so the person, when you're choosing.
Of course.
Wow.
You're making a decision who to marry. Of course.
Looks.
Of course. It is the first thing that attracts you to an individual. Is the looks. Before you begin to assess anything else.
Are you sure?
Yes. It's the first thing. That's the first thing that attracts you.
I've heard so many men say that.
Looks.
Yes.
That's for men. Maybe that's
for everybody.
I've heard a lot of men, Evans. I've heard a lot of men say that the kind of woman that they'll date is not necessarily the kind of woman they'll marry. So when they are looking to marry, looks is not perhaps top of they're looking for someone who can be a good mother.
But that is the first thing that attracts you to a person first, before you begin to have the conversation and realize that, oh my goodness, this is not what I'm looking for in terms of the substance behind.
So what if you were having a conversation with someone who was not so good looking, and then you found out that actually
the person isn't good looking,
and the character is not
good.
Wow.
Hey.
Oh wow. You are less likely to begin a conversation.
Hey.
I'm not saying it won't happen.
Wow.
That's interesting.
You learned something.
I didn't know that about you.
Well, you know.
Hey, I'm shocked.
So is that the criteria that you use to also talk to people at work?
Talk to people.
Yes.
He's not going to marry them. Why? Really?
He's always winking at my guests too. Anyway, Emefa, what about you? I know.
The guests. He knows all the guests.
Emefa, what about you?
I don't think looks matter.
So you would marry someone ugly?
Not ugly, but really. If the pocket is beautiful, if the pocket is good, he has a good bank account.
More likely or less likely to approach a man if the person is ugly?
No, really, it's not about
approach.
Wait, I don't approach. The show is not for you. It's okay. You people can go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Less likely or more likely?
I don't approach people. People approach me. So if the person approaches, there's confidence is there.
You know why they're approaching you?
Why?
I mean, forget about it.
Because of the looks. Are you serious?
Forget about the fact that you are big. Okay, all right, okay. Anyway, Strong and Sassy coming up. Stay tuned in.
We are interesting discussion.